Hello, hello. How are you today? We are so excited to be back here on Friday, May 6th, to come to you with another episode of CoachesCorner.health. My name is Leslie Gadet. I am a mindset and emotional awareness coach for women. I help my clients push through their fears by taking a deeper dive into their mindset and their beliefs so they can make better decisions in their responses to their emotional triggers. I also work with mission-driven women who want to make a bigger impact in the world by pursuing their passion projects or exploring entrepreneurship. And I show them that it's possible to have both, that they don't have to choose, and that when they develop an unstoppable mindset, learn to manage their emotions, which will protect their time, that it's possible to keep doing what they love, get things done more efficiently, and still spend quality time with their loved ones. Over to you, Andy.
Beautiful. I love that. I love listening to it every time.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
Hi, I'm Coach Andy. I am the unconditional coach. I teach mostly boundaries, and one of the things that I like about what you say is that it helps you do both. I also like to help people set boundaries so that they can separate themselves from like learn the difference between themselves and other people and and separate themselves from harm and still connect. Um, so yeah, you can have both. You can be in relationships. You can connect with people. You can share and join and have wonderful, beautiful, healthy relationships and still set boundaries.
Yes.
They're not separate things. A lot of people just treat them as well, if I have to have boundaries, I can't be with people. So yeah, you can have both. I really like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's just this misconception around what boundaries truly are, and people just really don't understand it. So they're using it in a way that's not helping them, and they're probably that's why they're so confused as to why things don't work out for them in specific
Yeah.
situations. And when they learn from you what it really means to set a healthy boundary, what it means to set a barrier, then it helps
Yes.
them to have more flexibility in their relationships, which
Yeah.
leads to better relationships. So I love that.
Yeah, yeah. It's wonderful. I really like doing it. It changed my life in dramatic ways, and it has changed a few clients. Like a few of my clients have really enjoyed it as well. Most of my clients have enjoyed what I teach them. Just not all of them have. It's been boundaries. So I
Mhm.
really enjoy it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So today's topic:
Yes.
why we
Woo.
struggle to get what we want.
I
Yeah,
love it.
most of us do struggle. Most of us
Yeah.
do struggle to get what we want. Let's first acknowledge that we do struggle to get what we want, and it's not because we're selfish. I mean, some people are a little selfish, some people are a lot selfish, but that isn't the biggest reason, nor is it even an important reason. Because quite honestly, we healthy people are a little bit selfish. We have to put ourselves first in order to serve others. We can't serve if we're empty, if we're running on fumes, if we don't have anything left to give, then how can we serve? So we do have to put ourselves first at least a little bit. Um, and therefore, we struggle to get what we want, not just because what we want is against what everybody else wants. Although there are a few people who that is their struggle. That isn't by any stretch the majority or even a significant number of people, regardless to what exes all think of their exes. That's not always the case. So yeah, that's our topic for today. Do you have any thoughts on this before we get started?
Yeah, I think well, I'm excited to see where you take us with it, but I think the part about struggling is just the word itself. Struggle is,
Yeah,
I think, what then leads us to believe that everything isn't going to work because we automatically feel like everything we're doing is a struggle. So if we want to achieve something, but it's a struggle to do it because popping up in my way, I don't have enough money to do this, so I can't do it. I can't meet my goal because this is a roadblock. Instead of looking at it, okay, well, maybe there's a lesson there. And sometimes maybe the lesson could be that that thing that you want to buy may actually not be the right fit. and
Right.
that and so in a way, not having the money, you could look at in hindsight, this is what's happened to me before. It's
Yeah.
happened where it's like, "Oh, I couldn't get that," and then I realized I don't want it anymore. So it's like we attach struggle to a lot of things, and automatically the struggle is such a negative word. It just starts to make you feel all sorts of bad emotions. It doesn't make you feel
Right.
good. If you
Right.
think about struggling, it makes you feel awful. It makes you feel less than. It makes you feel not worthy.
Right.
It makes you feel like quitting or procrastinating or or just not even starting. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And that is the case. I like that you pointed that out because that is the case for a lot of people. Just the very word struggle, or how they sometimes how we word the experiences we have, puts a negative twist on those experiences. For example, if we change the word struggle to challenge, sometimes it's a challenge to get what I want. Well, a challenge is something we feel is a good thing. Challenge has a positive spin. I don't want everything to be easy because if it's easy, it has no value.
Mhm.
So something that is a challenge is a good thing. However, something that is a struggle, well, it just feels hopeless.
Mhm.
Just the word feels hopeless. And I love that you pointed that out because that is a good portion of why we don't get what we want. A good portion of it is because, as you and I both have discussed before, it's because we don't understand the mental space, the mentality, the mindset that it takes to get what we want. We often believe that what I want is in competition with somebody else or against somebody else, or because I want it, somebody else has to want me not to have it, and therefore it is a struggle.
Mhm.
Or because I want it, another part of me wants me to not have it, therefore it has to be a struggle. I have to struggle against that part that's struggling against me. It's a constant push, pull, tug of war. And that's what struggle means.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, and to add just a little bit to that too, I think that when you want something, I think what happens is if somebody else gets what you want, then you automatically go to, "Oh, they're better. I didn't deserve
Yes.
it." Right? And
Yes.
so again, there's this self-talk, like just the negative self-talk.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to say it out loud. They don't even have to say it
No.
like something didn't happen. They're thinking it. And I think people don't realize words still have power even if you don't say them out loud.
Yeah.
So, because they're influencing how you show up in the world. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
As a
excited
matter
where
of
you take this.
as
Yeah.
a matter of fact, I think the secret words that we've talked about this before, those words we
Yeah.
don't say out loud have more power
Oh, yeah.
because we don't say them out loud, because we don't show them the light of day, because we don't shine a light on them. We don't focus on them. We don't give them. They have a lot more power because they're secret, they're hidden, they're private. The things we do in private have a lot more power.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's exactly it. So as far as why we don't get what we want, sometimes, first of all, we have to acknowledge that we do sometimes get what we want. Like all of us do at some point get what we want at some point. Now there's a huge variance between whether I get what I want most of the time, or whether I get what I want very rarely. And there's some people who don't get what they want very often at all, and some people who get it pretty often. So I'm not saying all of us are equal, but we do always get. There's always something in some point in our life. There's always something we do get what we want, and it might not be, as you mentioned earlier, it might not be something we actually wanted, but it's something we thought we wanted, and we got it, and we decided, and we found out that it wasn't really what I wanted in the first place. Like that first taste of ice cream that isn't the ice cream you thought you bought,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. Or and it's because it was considered, or especially here's another thing, the energy bars, that you would buy,
Yes.
thinking, oh, well, this is going to be better for me instead of a chocolate bar, and you end up thinking, taking one bite, and it's like, ugh, so I spent $3 on that. I'm not going to eat it, and again, it's because it's the perception of it. So,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Or the healthy shakes, the protein shakes and stuff like that that we drink. I remember when I first tasted those back when I was a young man. And I mean, I'm sure they've come a long ways now, but
mhm.
back then I mean, chalk off the chalkboard tasted better. I'm sure of it.
Mm.
They were
Yeah.
gross. So and sometimes so that's sometimes where the struggle comes from is we have this idea of what it is we want, and when we get it, it isn't what we want. So then we
Mhm.
use the word struggle or some word that feels like that because I don't even know what it is I want. I thought I did. I thought what I wanted was this thing, and it turns out that that isn't what I thought it was. You know,
Mhm.
dating the girl I thought I was gonna want to date, and turns out she was not at all what I thought she was gonna who I thought she was gonna be, uh,
Mhm.
or 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 getting the job I thought I wanted, and it turns out that job was not at all what I thought it was gonna be, or or getting the promotion or having the raise or buying that thing as you use the example. Sometimes it isn't what we want, and sometimes we don't even know what we want. Sometimes, a lot of times, we don't get what we want because most of us, all we know is what we don't want. We know the experiences we did not enjoy. I got this job and I don't like it. I don't know what job I would like, but I don't like this one. I didn't
Mhm.
like the last one or the last this one or the last one before that or the one before that. So I know which jobs I don't like, but there's millions of jobs out there. So I'm going to have to go through a lot of jobs before I find the one I like. That's a struggle. That's what struggle feels like, right? It feels like hopelessness. So a lot of the time it is because we don't know what we want. And that's kind of the crux of what I wanted to talk about. How do we get what we want if we don't even know what that is? We
Yeah.
struggle to get what we want because we don't even know what that is. How did you figure out what you wanted?
So for me, I think, well, first of all, just to talk a little bit about what you just said, I think part of people don't know what they want because most people can tell you what they don't want and they can find supporting evidence to support why they're not getting it, why they're not
Yes.
getting the things that they want. And it all is usually is reflected back on themselves, on who they are.
Yeah.
Um, I believe that we focus on our weaknesses rather than our strengths for a reason because
Yeah.
we are looking at other people and comparing ourselves to them. So if somebody else is in maybe in the same kind of like field as we are, but we look at them and we see what they're presenting to the world and that looks better than us because we have a low self-worth that we have about ourselves, then we're just going to be looking for the supporting evidence to say, yeah, that person is better than me and this is the reasons why. Look at them and if you look at me, it really is. It's unfortunate because there's so much. It's so easy to compare ourselves to other people because of social media. Is
Yeah.
there's so much there's so many online businesses. There's so many people in business online that are doing a lot of things, showing their strengths,
Yeah.
showing how great things are.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen a lot of people on social media showing their things that they struggled with that now they love, they face them as challenges rather than struggles. There's not a lot
Right.
of people that are sharing their as what I learned from one particular coach I really like, David Bayer, saying, show your scars, not your stars, and that'll resonate with people.
Yeah.
So for me, the way I've found the things that I do want is I've had to empty out my head of the things I don't want
Mm.
because that's easy. Most people can take a pen to paper, start writing away
Yeah.
and saying all the things that they don't want, every single thing. And it could probably, and some people could do pages and pages. I actually ended up doing a few pages of what I don't want around a
Yeah.
lot of things, relationships, business, life, everything.
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me, it was a clearing moment because once I got out of my head all of those things that I didn't want, I found that it left space in my brain to start looking at the things that I did want. And
Right.
I started to reframe. Now, a lot of the time, what you can do is look at some of the things that you don't want and reframe it to what you do want. And that's kind of like what I have been doing. And so I realized that what I wanted became powerful for me because then I was able to find those things that I did want and start
Right.
looking for the solutions, looking for the pathway, looking for the ways to become resourceful and figure those things out. Leaning on the people that are closest to me that I care about, that have my back, that I can, run my ideas with, like we do
Yeah.
with each other. And that helped me to start really looking towards, moving towards doing the things, leaning into it, of the things that I wanted.
Right.
And that's how I start. And that's one of the things that I do with my clients, because I believe when you are, especially if you're stretching for big goals, that you'll find things in your brain floating around to say, no way, that's too big.
Right.
And I say push back and get those out of your head, because they're there. And just as I said, just because you don't say them doesn't mean you're not thinking them. And
That's
so
right.
as I get them out and I've gotten them out, I've never had to really look back on that. I'm not saying it's a one and done process, because I actually think it can be really powerful to revisit the exercise. I'm
Yes.
actually doing that. I did that recently around wealth, around abundance, around financial abundance.
Yeah.
And I did an exercise about all, some of the things I didn't want.
Right.
And then I did an exercise about 100 things I did. It's like,
Mm.
wow, I
Right.
found 100 things that I want.
Yeah.
But it's getting those other things out, the other things, and reframing them to really what it is that you want. Because when you focus on the things that you don't want, you're going to start looking for things to prove you that you're right. If you don't want bills, you don't want to pay bills, you don't want debt, all that's going to be facing you is debt and bills, because that's what you're focusing on. Because where your
Hmm.
attention goes, your focus flows. So if you want to have, I'm not saying that your debt will go away, like, just because you don't think about it, or your bills will go away just so you don't think about it. But if you start reframing it, saying, I want to have more financial abundance, to be comfortable and have it an easier, be comfortable and have plenty to pay my bills on time, easy peasy, and have extra to do other things. You're looking towards something rather than moving away from something. Because if
Yes.
you're moving away, it has you focusing on the negative. If you're moving towards, it has you focusing on the positive. So that's kind of like how I
Yeah.
started reframing how I look at the question of what I don't want and what I do want. Like I said, what I do want, what do you want? That's usually the question you get asked. And most people say, don't focus on what you don't want. But I truly believe that if you can focus on what you don't want and get it out of your head, it's easier for you to focus on what you do. So that's what
Yeah.
I.
I completely agree. I love that. First of all, um, focus on what you want and what you don't want. Focus on the positive instead of the negative. Focus on the good instead of the bad. Um, that's bad advice. Plain out, that's bad advice, because our brains are genetically wired and coded to search for problems and solve them. We are the entire purpose of our brains is to find dangers and avoid them. So trying to say focus on the positive, it's like saying, okay, shut off your brain. Don't think, don't reason, don't understand, don't try and solve problems. Just ignore them. That- It's plain out bad advice. Um, and if that's all we do, to what you said, if that's all we do, then we've got nothing left. Like, if all we do is focus on the problems that our brain finds, then all we're going to experience in life is those problems. So instead of trying to say focus on the positive or focus on the solutions or focus on the things that you want instead of the things that you don't want. If you say that, if you do that, you're completely ignoring the purpose of your brain. If you want to actually focus on those things, you first need to acknowledge the point of your brain and the things that it finds. You first need to acknowledge all of the issues, the problems, the concerns that your brain finds. In order to find what you want, you have to acknowledge, give space to, give thought, energy, time, money, even to those problems that you don't want. Those things that you don't want need to have attention. They don't need to be solved, but they do need attention. And this is the problem. This is for most people, this is the who don't get what they want. This is why. Because they're focusing on, I don't have what I want, I don't have what I want, I don't have what I want, but they're focusing on it internally, not externally.
Mm-hmm.
They're focusing on it in their head. They're focusing on it on their own. They're focusing on it in their secret life, in their private life. They're trying not to be the needy person, the weak person, the struggling person, the poor person, the always never happy person. They're trying not to be that person
Yeah.
because all of us knows somebody we perceive as being that person, as some we perceive as being needy, we perceive as being weak, we perceive as being always focusing on the problem. All of us know somebody that we think is that person.
Mm-hmm.
And they might very well be. Oftentimes, that perception isn't wrong. And what we decide then is we don't want to be that person. We don't want to be like that person. So when we're comparing ourselves, like you said earlier, to other people, sometimes what we're comparing ourselves is to the negative qualities we don't like. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be that needy person. I don't want to be that bum who does it, who never has anything. I don't want to be that that woman who's always needing a man. I don't want to be that guy who can never do anything on his own. I
Yeah.
don't want to, there's all these things I don't want to be. So we struggle, we focus on these things that we don't want to be, and what we end up doing is living the life we don't want to live
Mm-hmm.
because that's all we see.
Yeah. And because our brain, when you think about it, our brain is like our own little Google, right? Everything
Yeah,
we're thinking about, we start searching. Our brain just starts to do the search. Oh, you're thinking about that all men are like they're all bad or all women are all bad. So let me search. Oh yeah, experience. Oh yeah, experience. Oh yeah, experience. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's my
yeah,
experience. You're searching your own experiences, but you're not allowing yourself to look exterior to finding an answer. I also think that's why a lot of the time affirmations aren't as powerful. Affirmations are powerful, but I think how people could approach affirmations is look at it as the I don't want, as some of the things you said. I don't want to be the needy person, or I want to. And in other words, flip that to something more. So I don't want to be the needy girlfriend always needing a man. I am okay, but I am a powerful woman. I am enough as I am now, and I want to be in a loving relationship. Like
yeah,
switching that negative to something positive, right? And I
yeah,
think that's how affirmations are more powerful when you can get away from the things you've been thinking about yourself, like I'm stupid, actually say no, I'm actually resourceful.
yeah,
And so changing, I can't figure this out, no, I'm resourceful. I'm stupid, I don't have any friends. Actually, no, I have a lot of great people who reach out to me and connect with me daily,
yeah,
because otherwise we can stay in that mindset of our Google search going and saying, what are you saying? Oh yeah, okay, let me find something. Oh yeah, I got something that'll support that. That's what happens. And people aren't
yeah,
realizing that.
yeah. And that search can be used to our benefit as well. When we do flip the switch and search for the positives, I'm blown away. I'm blown away every time I talk to a client and they use the always statement. This always happens, or I'm always blah, 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 or I always blah, blah, blah. And not 2 or 3 sentences later, they'll be defending against the attack they just made on themselves. I won't even have to say anything. And they'll say, yeah, but sometimes I do this, which isn't that. It's the opposite of that. You know, I um I always say always. I always use strong, definite statements that are never true. Um, do you always? Really? And so without even me asking that question, they'll go, well, there was this one time when I actually said a statement that was more true, that wasn't so distinctive, and it was most of the time. So there was this one time. Well, then there was these other times that I said these other things too, that were a little more in line with what I actually believe. So I don't actually believe that, but it just feels like that all the time. And there's that always again, all the time.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so that this attack they're making on themselves, they defend against that very attack. And I'm blown away by listening to clients defend their own attacks.
Mhm.
And I go, how could you not get into an argument with your spouse? How can you how could you ever have a conversation that didn't turn into an argument when you're defending your own damn attacks? All your spouse has to do is open their mouth and you're going to defend something, because that's what you do.
Mhm.
And it's not always the case, but it is often enough that you struggle to have positive conversations with your spouse. So often some of the first conversations I have with clients is, let's look at why you're using these always and nevers and have to and must, and these dramatic statements that don't really make the point.
Mhm.
You're trying to you're trying to accent the point so that I believe you. What if I just believed you when you told me the truth?
Mhm.
That 10% of the time I exaggerate.
Yes.
Some of the times I don't tell the whole truth. I'll believe you. Some of the times I'm actually pretty sincere.
Mhm.
Some of the times I'm quite loving and compassionate. I'll believe you, because that's my job.
Yeah.
And
I
quite honestly, it's pretty easy to believe.
Yeah, I think what came up for me as you were explaining that is that I think there's this fear to admit out loud that it's not always happening.
Yeah.
Because again, when you're in the moment, it can feel like it always happens.
Yeah.
But if you really took a look to see through your life, that it doesn't always happen. But there's that fear to admit, because then you have to then admit, well, then why has this been happening to me more often? And that's having to admit that perhaps you do exaggerate things out of proportion, so that it supports you saying that things always happen this way,
Yeah.
right? And so that's another way of looking at it. So that came up for me as you were talking.
Yeah. It supports how I feel.
Mhm.
I feel one story that came up for has come up for me a lot is I feel poor. I feel like I don't have any money. I feel like I can't afford things. I feel like I never get paid. Well, I mean, if I never got paid, I'd be dead, right? If I never got paid, I wouldn't have a place to live or food to eat. So it can't be entirely true. And so those kinds of questions, we do ask those questions. And when I say those statements, or when I used to say those statements, I always, or I never, or it always, or use those um, extreme statements like that, it's not necessarily to tell the truth. It's to express a feeling.
Mm.
It's to express an emotion. Right now, I don't I don't feel I have any hope to ever feel financially stable. I don't have hope that I'll ever feel financially stable. Therefore, I never get paid communicates that,
Mhm.
because we don't know how to say, I don't have any hope.
Mhm.
Or we don't know how to say, I'm feeling low on my hope right now. We don't know how to say, I'm feeling hopeless, because that feels like I'm weak. I'm admitting defeat.
Yeah.
And I don't want to tell you I'm admitting defeat.
Yeah.
So these are part of the reasons why we don't get what we want, but because we don't honestly express what we're actually feeling. We honestly express words that emulate that feeling to try and communicate the feeling, because the feeling is pretty drastic.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling, the emotion is pretty extreme. When we're feeling in the deepest of our emotions, it feels pretty heavy, pretty hard, pretty extreme. And we don't have ways to communicate those extreme levels of emotions. So I think that's one way um, to get what we want. Again, back to your point from the beginning is, if we simply acknowledge, write down, tell someone what our what it is we don't want, what it is we're experiencing that we don't like, what we want to avoid, what all the problems are. If we give those a voice, time and energy, and even money sometimes, we'll find we can solve some of them simply by giving them a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Not most of them, but some of them. And if we can solve some of them by giving them a voice, those solutions will then open up a little bit of space to put energy towards the ones we can solve. And then we can put time, money, and energy towards the ones we can solve. And then there's a few more that are off our plate. And then the rest that we haven't yet solved, they're on a piece of paper someplace. They're on my computer somewhere. They're not in my head, clogging up my brain space.
Yep.
They're somewhere where I can keep track of them without having to have them cycle through my brain all day, every day. And what that does, like you've said, what that does is allows my brain to go,
Mm-hmm.
now I can see what I want.
Yeah.
What I actually want is a girlfriend who loves me. What I actually want is a job where I feel fulfilled and get paid for what I do.
Mm-hmm.
What I actually want is a husband who will acknowledge my presence, who will feed my cravings. What I actually want is a family who likes to spend time together. I'll be able to acknowledge those things that I want. And that, like you said, that's not to say that those things I don't want will go away. As a matter of fact, some of them will keep reoccurring. Even if you have solved them, they're going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. The nature of problems is that they keep coming back. And the more you solve them, the less you fear them, the less you struggle with them. The more you solve them, and the more you even just write them down and acknowledge their existence, the less you struggle and the more you lean into the challenge and
Right.
solve them,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
that's my perspective. That's why we don't get what we want and how we can get what we want,
Yes.
by acknowledging all the things that are not what we want or what we don't want. One of the one of the first things I do in my boundaries course is I get people to write down what you want and what you don't want. And I say to start with what you don't want, because that's the easier and much bigger list anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Start with what you don't want, because only when you get that list complete will you have space to actually find what you do want. So to circle back, one of the reasons we struggle to get what we want is because we don't even know what we want. Our head is too full of all the things we don't want to even know what we want. So empty your head.
Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
power
not
in that.
not literally. Please don't do that.
No, but there is. There's power. I call it the mind dump. But yeah, there is
Yes,
great power in that because, again, this cluttering of your brain of all of this stuff that's just swirling around up there, and some of your greatest ideas could be waiting to be revealed to you, and they can't come
right,
out because all you're thinking is all of the negative stuff. Life
right,
is going to happen, and it's not going to happen the way we always want.
right,
I'm going to use the word in that way. Always want our life to happen a certain way, but I think I don't want my life to always happen a certain way because
right,
I love the journey. I love the challenge. I love being able to wake up to a brand new day that I haven't explored yet, that I get to show. I mean, I might have things scheduled, but I get to explore that day. How am I going to show up? What am I going to do? Who am I going to talk to? What connections am I going to make? What opportunities are going to reveal themselves? It's a day to each day is like a gift to us, and I think when if we started looking at every day, every moment of every day, and just recognizing all of the things that we do, and even if we have a checklist, don't just look at your task as done, but look at your task, how you completed it. Like, be proud of yourself, say, good job, and recognize all of the things that you do. Be present in your day, because those moments will last you. They will help you, especially in on days when you might lack clarity, you might lack focus, you might have a challenge in front of you, you're not quite sure. Then you can go, oh, didn't I actually do something similar? Google search, right? And it'll
Right.
bring it to your memory. I also like to have a written account of the things that I do, and that's another thing I truly like to have that accounting, and I do a yearly accounting as well of my previous year, and have that, recognizing the milestones and celebrating it. And I think that will help with when we feel like we're struggling. Um, just looking back at your past accomplishments, just looking back at your days, and the experiences and the connections, and the relationships. All of those things can inspire you to no longer be struggling. And again, learning how to reframe your words. Instead of saying like this always happens to me. Looking at it from a different perspective. If that is the thing you always say, get curious around why do you say that to yourself all
Right.
of the time? Why do you believe that that is your truth?
Yeah.
What's is your supporting evidence to that? Can be part of your what I don't want list. Because when you can look at that and say, okay, well, that's not what I want. What do I want instead of that? Now, what could support that? Because I know for as an example around gratitude, I do an exercise, what I call gratitude stacking, which is bookending my days with gratitude. So I start my day with gratitude. It allows me to have this gratitude energy through the day, so that if something knocks me out of that, I can recognize it and take, stock of like what's going on. And
Right.
then at the end of the day, I do actually look back on my day and reflect and be grateful. And I truly believe that for some people, because I wrote an article around it, that some people actually need to have that supporting evidence to move so that they're not no longer looking at the what I don't want and the things that are negative happening in their life, the negative thoughts that have kind of been their truth for so long. Sometimes for them to find gratitude, because I believe you can find gratitude in every situation, including the things that aren't going your way, because you'll find, oh, they're like, you might say, well, I don't have a roof over my head, but I can't pay for a roof over my head, but you actually have a roof over your head, so that's something to be grateful for, right? So,
Right.
like, as an example, and so I truly believe that if some people actually just need to look at their situation and go, well, is that really true? How can I change my mind around that thought and look at, okay, what's really happening? Is it
Right.
always happening like this, or is it only some of the time? And in some of those times, can it actually be true that it's not always happening that way, and that other good things are happening? It's learning to find the gratitude. I think that's sometimes it's hard because you're always focusing on the negative,
Right.
and it's unfortunate. But if we can look at it from the perspective that even in a challenging situation or when you're struggling, that could just be sometimes a moment to stop what you're doing, to take a closer look at what you're doing, to see if
Yeah.
what you're doing really makes sense. And it might actually go to you, oh, yeah, you know what? Actually, I don't want to do that. Or no, it doesn't make sense. Why am I doing this?
Hmm.
And it's not a bad thing, because that will allow you to then go, well, if that's not what I want to do, then what actually do I want to do? Right? Get
Right.
that out of my
Right.
head. So
Right.
having this exercise of what I don't want and what I do want can be done more than one time. You can
Yeah.
revisit it, and it can be a positive experience.
Yeah. Well, and More than that, I think it should be done more than one time. It should be done on I don't know about a regular basis, but at least occasionally. It should be done, sometimes. It should be done a few times, because we what we want changes, and therefore what we don't want also changes.
Yeah.
And as we go through life, we'll discover more things we don't want. Right? I'll eventually discover that I don't like um, peanut butter and chocolate together, like most of the world does.
I still do.
I mean, I do too, but some people don't.
That's true.
Or I'll discover that some things just I may have liked them and I don't like them anymore, or I
Hmm.
thought I liked them, but not really the way I thought I did. You know, um, that's what I was like when I, as a child, loved spaghetti and meatballs. And then I became an adult and ate nothing but spaghetti and meatballs for about 3 years. And I decided that maybe I should eat something else after that. And it took me quite a while after that to really enjoy spaghetti and meatballs again, a number of decades to enjoy spaghetti and meatballs again, because I liked it and then I didn't and then I did again, right? You change what you want, you change your
Hmm.
mind. So it's important to go through this exercise occasionally, like more than once. Revisit and remind yourself or rediscover the things that you want and don't want. And start with the list of what you don't want. And as we get used to doing that, our list of what we don't want will become smaller and easier to do. And the list of what we do want will become more prevalent, more front focused, and more on our brain. And we'll be able to find evidence of that more often, more quickly. And that's how we can get what we want and stop struggling. We might find a challenge in getting what we want, but that's not a bad thing. Sometimes what I want is a Lamborghini and they're expensive. That's a challenge, right? I mean, I don't want a Lamborghini, but some people do. So that's the idea, is sometimes it's a challenge, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't go get it. When we struggle, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
So how you get what you want is by getting rid of the things that you don't want. And I don't mean actually stopping those things from happening in your life. I mean, get them out of your head. I want to also talk about the concept of other people's influence in our lives. Sometimes what I want is for my wife to stop nagging me.
Hmm.
Is that really what you want? Or is that really more of a thing I don't want? Right? Do you want your wife to stop nagging you? Because that's something you don't want. I don't want her to nag me anymore.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that you write down, get out of your head, and focus on what you do want. What I actually want is for her to stop asking me to do things and sit on the couch and watch a football game with me. And maybe she doesn't like football, so maybe we'll compromise and watch a movie. And I don't want to watch one of her romantic movies because what I don't want to watch, what I don't want. So maybe we'll watch an action movie, but it's not a football game and it's not a romance movie. So we'll watch an action movie. It's not quite what either one of us wants, but it's a compromise. And that way I can get what I want, and so can she. But in order to do that, we have to get out of our head of what we don't want. And we have to, sometimes that is about what the other person or other people don't want to give us. Sometimes we do have to acknowledge. Sometimes these, like this is what I was talking about earlier. Sometimes these aren't solutions that are easy and simple. Sometimes it isn't just a matter of say what I want and I'll get it. Well, what happens if she doesn't want to sit down and watch a football game with you? Right? What happens if he doesn't want to sit down and watch romantic comedies with you?
Hmm.
What happens if he doesn't want to sit and snuggle on the couch for 6 hours on a Saturday afternoon? As much fun as that might be. That sometimes what we want includes another person, and sometimes we run into them not wanting the same thing.
Hmm.
What do we do then?
Hmm.
The process works the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that because we started this channel off and we were talking about expectations and relationships and that, and we realized that that's an expectation of somebody else giving you what you want, and it's not really agreeing to something that is enjoyable for both of you. I think relationships are about learning to give and take, to but
Yes.
give and take in a way where one is not feeling that they're being taken advantage of and the
Right.
other is not feeling entitled. And that means not being selfish. That means listening to your partner. That means allowing for to you never know, you might actually enjoy a romance movie that actually
Yeah.
turns out to be funny. I can give you an example. My husband, when the movie A Star Is Born with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga came out, he was saying, "We're going to go see a movie tomorrow." This is when it first came out. And I said, "Okay, what are we going to go see?" And he told me that. I was like, I was looking around going, "Okay, I'm sorry. Is that my
Where
husband
does
saying?"
where'd this come from?
And he says, "No, I read up on it and I saw an interview them on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and they were talking about it, and it sounds amazing, and it looks like it's going to be really amazing, and we're going to go see it." And we went. And
Yeah.
I mean, I loved the movie, but it was just
Yeah.
so you just never know, opening yourself up to an experience that might not fit into the box of what you think is your ideal is what relationships are about,
Yes.
experiencing life together. And so if someone is into sports and someone is not, does it mean that you have to compromise and not watch the game? No, I've sat plenty of times watching hockey games with my husband, football games with him. The only sport that I'm sorry, I hope that no one gets offended by this, is baseball. I just can't sit and watch baseball, although it's phenomenal and I played it. I just can't. Oh, I played softball, but yeah, no. That's just one sport I can't sit in front of for too long. I can't sit there for too long.
Right.
It's an exciting game, yes, but it's just I think it's 162 games a year. Like, what? Who came up with that schedule? Everybody else has got it easy peasy. They got like a few months and that's it, right? They don't have that many
Yeah.
games. Anyhow, my point being is that allowing yourself to experience something that might not fit on your bucket list as something that you really want to do, but
Yeah.
it's something that the other person in your dynamic enjoys, then that's when
Right.
you're able to go and do that. So maybe you find that your relationship's a struggle. Well, maybe it's because neither one of you is willing to give the other person's ideas a chance. But you never know if you're not going to like something unless you participate. So, you might say, "Oh, I don't want to watch a romantic comedy," or "No, I don't want to watch a football game." But you actually might find it's something that you enjoy
Right.
because one of the things is you're doing it together, and that is creating a bond.
Yeah.
Something that even if it's not a weekly ritual, if it's not an all the time type of event,
Right.
that you watch football games together or that you watch romantic comedies together, at least doing that once in a while will allow you to have, like, oh, the other person feels acknowledged, and they feel respected, and they feel loved because you took the time to do something that they like.
Yeah.
You took the time to spend time with them doing something that they like, and so that just creates a deeper bond. So if you are struggling with your relationship, that could be one of the ways that you could find connection, like finding ways to connect. It's not about compromising what you don't like or what you don't want. It's about sharing the life experience with someone that you decided to spend your
Yes.
life with.
Yeah.
I've been married 26 years, and again, my husband loves golf. I don't watch it all the time, but I do enjoy it.
Right.
Same for football and again hockey. I'll watch it once in a while, and it's not something all the time. So
Right.
these are things that, and he'll do the same, like as I said, romantic comedies. We watch shows together. We
Right.
spend time doing the things like that we really truly enjoy, and we then we'll do things outside of, when we go out on a date night, and we'll do things that each of us
Right.
enjoys. So
Yeah.
it's all about speaking a love language to each other. It's not necessarily that it's of the five love languages, but it's being open to. allowing you to come from a place of love with your
Yeah,
in your relationship, to bring your relationship from struggle to actually, enjoying each other's company.
yeah, yeah. And the other thing that happens too when you sit down with somebody and do what they love to do, you get to see a part of their heart that you don't see other times. You get to see a part of their passion. Sit down and ask your husband about golf one time and see what happens. Sit down and ask your wife about the actor in this romantic comedy and see what happens. Sit down and ask that person about the thing they have asked you to do. Request information of them and watch their heart just blossom. Watch their passion come out. Watch them come alive in a way that you didn't know could happen. You get to experience a part of a person when you share their thing with them. You get to experience something that you didn't you won't experience otherwise. It's my favorite part of watching a woman cry during a romantic movie is watching her cry at the sad parts and cry happy at the end. I mean, it's my favorite part. Not because I want to see her cry, but because I love seeing her heart. I love seeing her passion. I love seeing her emotions. I love watching that. And I'm a storyteller, so I love rom-coms because they're about as formulaic of a story as you can get. They're always the same and almost minute to minute timed the same. Find a rom-com that's not 90 minutes, and you'll find one that doesn't fit the formula. But because they're almost exclusively 90 minutes. So, and I like it from that point of view to watch the formula play out because I've studied storycraft. So I love watching that. So for me, it's a fun thing to do too. And I do. I actually sit down and watch rom coms by myself sometimes. I find them a lot of fun to watch, and I cry too. Also, I'm not going to be ashamed of that. Um, so yeah, it isn't always about compromising. Sometimes it is about just enjoying what that other person does, so that you can see inside them and what drives them.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's about talking their language, whether you use the five love languages or just the general analogy of talking their language of speaking how they feel, how they believe, what their values are. And they don't have to be different than yours or drastically different than yours, but they're not exactly the same. So just speak to their values. And this is how we connect. This is how we get what we want. And because what we want in relationships is connection, love, intimacy, time together, emotions together, connected hearts, connected souls. That's how you get it, by experiencing them at their best, experiencing them at their deepest,
Hmm.
and invite them to experience you the same way. They don't always have to accept, but if you open up the invitation, sometimes they will. And that's enough. This is how we get what we want. This is how we find what we want. And it works just as well in careers, in families, in hobbies, in other aspects of life too. If you're working on a team at work and you're struggling to you know, make accomplish the goals of the team or accomplish your version of those goals within the team. If you're having a hard time getting what you want out of the team or getting the support you want from your boss or your coworkers, lean in. First of all, as we said earlier, write down what you don't want and solve those problems that you can solve and leave the rest on the page for now. And then figure out what you do want and chase those things. And you'll find yourself being inspired and you'll find yourself inspiring those others on your team.
Yeah.
Even if you're not the leader, even if you're the bottom of the totem pole, you'll still inspire those other people on your team.
Yeah. Well, you said something about story, and I love story. I think that I talked to, I've actually did a summit last year, and I called it "Getting into Your Story" because I truly believe that we have been writing our story from the moment we were born. When
Yes.
we first started looking around, we first started as babies, getting curious. Getting curious about our own bodies, getting, like when we touch our feet and we found our toes and we're like, oh my gosh, what does that taste like?
Right?
To when we first started crawling. And then when we first decided to stand up and we got like that and we fell down, but we didn't give up. That's the thing. We decided in that moment, I'm going to try again. And then all of a sudden it became, okay, I can take a step by myself. I can take a two steps by myself. And then, all of the things that we do in life, I truly believe is we've been writing, paragraph by, sentence and paragraphs and chapters and novels and just books. Our story has changed over our lifetimes, and I love it. And I think that's why I think it's so important to not just sit on the sidelines letting things happen and complain about them, but rather get into it. Like, okay, so this is happening, and it's not going the way you like or would hope. But what would you like it to do? If you don't want that, start looking for what you do want by
Yeah.
reframing it. And so write your story a different way and get into that and enjoy your life. Because when
Find some yummier toes.
yeah, because yeah, because when my whole goal for just living my own life my way is to be able to look back over my life and say, wow, I did a lot of things and I had a lot of ideas, and maybe I didn't do all of them, but I was so glad that I at least thought of them and I accomplished a lot of them. And I can pass some of that on to the younger generation about just getting out there and living your life. I truly believe that when you look at life as your own story that you get to write your way and you can rewrite it as many times as you want, it doesn't matter that you can change your trajectory in life by deciding that you want to do something else, if that's
Yes.
whatever that is. And
Yes.
that's why I get so passionate about it, because I truly believe this. I've been writing my story. Listen, I'm living a location free lifestyle. I'm coming to you from Puerto Morelos, Mexico. And next time you see us, I'll be in Canada. And
Right.
and that's just because I've decided that I want to live my life different places, different, with different communities, having different people in my life, and just experience life a different way than just the traditional. And
Yes.
that was my choice. So
Yep.
I rewrote how I was going to live my life, and I've been living that life. So you can too. That's my message. Don't
Yeah.
sit and just let life write your story for you. Get
Right.
into it. Get really
Right.
curious about what you want. Start
Yeah.
moving towards those things. Get out of your head what you don't want. Do those accountings around the things, especially if you're going after something big and it feels scary. So write out what you don't want to happen and then lean into like looking at what do you want to happen with this goal and start going from there.
Yeah.
Write that book.
Yeah. I love the story analogy. One of the things that I wrote on when I first started my blog, I don't know, 5 years ago now. I wrote the on the homepage. I wrote something to the effect of, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something to the effect of, you don't know what somebody's story is. You might be involved. You're only involved in one part of it. You might be involved in a few chapters, but you haven't been there for the whole story. Even if you're a brother or a sister or a mom or a dad or a wife or a husband or a child, you haven't been there for the whole story. You're only there for a piece of it. So don't judge a person based on their story, because you don't know the whole story. We are writing a whole story. We are writing an entire story. And I'm sorry, I got caught on those toes. on a on
Oh,
a
Randy.
on a baby eating their toes, and
But
then
it's
as they get
true.
up and walk around, the taste of their toes change because they're walking around now.
Yeah. Doesn't stop them.
Right. And then some people never lose that. When they become adults, they still suck on other people's toes.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I just got stuck on that. I'm gonna now tell a story based on the taste of people's toes.
I love it.
This is how my head works.
That's okay.
Welcome to the story.
Love it.
So thank you for this conversation. It was wonderful, as they always are.
Yeah.
I love discussing these things with you. We go to so many places. We have so much wisdom to share between the two of us. I love the things you bring to these conversations. They really enlighten me, and they offer a wisdom that I didn't have before, and I love it every time. Thank you
Well,
so much for this
I
conversation.
I feel the same way about you, Andy. I think that we've had some amazing conversations. That's why this collaboration works. We are
Yeah,
open to just listening to each other and letting the conversation go where it goes. That's the beauty of this YouTube channel. Is it's although we know what we're going to talk about, it's never scripted. So
it's never scripted.
you're just getting us
Raw.
authentically, and I that is for me, and I think for Andy as well, the most important thing is to be ourselves and to share from our perspective. Does it mean it's going to be yours? No, it doesn't have to be. That's what we mean
No.
when we say make up your mind your way for you. You don't have to follow anyone else's
Yeah,
model for your life. Follow what works for you. And again,
yeah,
the struggle, the life doesn't have to be a struggle. Only is if you let it. And
yeah,
so make that decision today that life could throw you curveballs, but
yeah.
you're going to look at ways to dodge them. I mean, like, get out of the way.
Yep.
Or it might throw up a roadblock, so you're gonna figure out a way how to move that roadblock. Instead of looking at
Right.
it as an obstacle, you're gonna figure out the solution to
Yeah.
making change, to doing whatever it is that you're trying to do. And I always, 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 and I'm gonna use that word for this, I always encourage my clients to make sure that they have people in their lives that they know, like, and trust, or know, love, and trust, that are people they can go to, that support them, that will support them. And, don't judge or criticize them, but will rather hold that space for them when they need to get advice or just get something off their chest that will help them talk it out so that they can move from a struggle to a challenge to making that solution work for them. So that's usually
Yeah.
how I work with them. So this has been
Beautiful.
phenomenal. We're over time, but it's been fabulous. We never ever have to worry about being able to fill the hour. It just comes
We have
naturally.
enough words between the two of us. We can come up with enough words to fill an hour.
So, I don't know if you were on last week, but we had said that we will not be on next Friday. I will be traveling back to the States on Monday, then traveling up to Canada. So we will not be on next Friday, but we will be back here the following Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. If you like this channel, please, press subscribe. And if you like what you heard today, share this video with your friends. Any comments, any questions, anything you'd like us to talk about, please put them in the chat. We are always looking to engage with our audience and to bring you the things that you want to hear about. So thank you again. Thank you, Andy. As always, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it has. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Woohoo!
Bye for now.